G'day guys. So, prepare to get lectured. No, actually, okay, but a little bit, okay. So, today guys, what I want to talk about is your training intensity, okay? Now, coming back out of lockdown, I know that a lot of you have got some pent up rage or whatever, and you want to get back to training, and that's awesome, okay? And I'm happy because I get to see you guys, okay? Now, one thing though that I want to point out and make kind of clear, I guess, is that lately, not just lately, but it's just like, it is what it is when it comes to hard training, okay? That sometimes when you guys train, you know, one guy gets this, one guy gets that, and it just elevates until we have like scraps, okay? Now I'm partial to scraps. I love wars, okay? I do them regularly, okay? But the thing to be aware of is when you're having wars in the gym, is that you're probably not actually getting better, okay? Now, what does this mean? It means that anytime you come to training, if you go through a role and by the end of it, you're exhausted, unless you're already established technically, probably, it's a bit of a waste, you know what I mean? So it's important to get that feel if you want to compete and all that sort of stuff about like how to train hard and how to fight at an intensity and not give up points and not do this and that and the other thing. But what it always comes back to is improvement, okay? And I say this all the time, but I figure I may as well make a video on it, okay? And that is that winning in training doesn't look like winning in tournaments, okay? Winning in training looks like playing the game of jiu-jitsu, trying to find the timing, making sure your technique is crisp, improving each and every round. So when I see you guys going to war, I look at that and I think, that was shit. You know, it's fun to watch and we might go, woo, or whatever, insert expletives, okay? But really what we want to see is you guys getting better and also being mindful of, I guess, like who you're training with and the intensity at which you should be training, okay? So for me, right, when I train, like when I do my training guys, I have some guys who are like literally like the best in the country, like Lockie Giles, Levi, these guys. When I'm training with them, I need to use all of my attributes because they're using all of theirs. And that's when you have mad scraps, okay? I have some other guys in the gym who aren't the same level technically, but they're like my size and they're also like browns and blacks and purple belts, right? So those guys, I can put my foot down a bit and then sometimes play, okay? So those guys, for example, the people I match up with physically pretty well, who are technically in a similar level, it's okay to sometimes have scraps, but sometimes I'll just be like, hey man, today is not the day for rolls to the death, okay? And we go, okay, cool, and we wind it back, okay? So the reason I say this is because we have a large contingent of people who are whites and some blue belts. When you're training to the death, right, it's not optimal training for you guys, right? So I've had 10.5 years of jiu-jitsu in the game now. So I know what to do in jiu-jitsu, right? But if you're still learning, if you're still trying to develop, and you guys are training like this, you're not gonna get better. That's the bottom line, you know? But building on this, what I thought I wanted to go into especially is like training with people who you're bigger or just way stronger than, okay? So this is something that I've had to deal with my entire jiu-jitsu on the positive end, you know, and then on Fee's case, she's had to deal with it on the inverse end, right? Being like an older lady, right?
What are you saying?
Much older. So when I'm training with people, for me to get the most out of my roles, let's talk about how to do it, okay? Number one is that you have to be a harsh critic of yourself, okay? Because if you're stronger, inherently jiu-jitsu is gonna come easier for you, okay? You can win more earlier than the person who's much smaller in stature, okay? When you do this, you are cheating the system and convincing yourself you have good jiu-jitsu, okay? But if you're coming out of a roll sweating hard and like exhausted or panting and they're smaller than you, that's a shit show in my opinion. It just looks ridiculous. I'm like, bro, why are you tired? Why, you know? So if you're a bigger person in jiu-jitsu, your goal should always be to like finesse everything you do, okay? Now, the other part of it is like, if you're a smaller person in jiu-jitsu, what do you do? Well, first of all, I think that like there's a sense in which like you need to like try and set the tone of the round early and be clear about what you expect from people, you know? So if you know somebody's going like rolling too hard with you or they're going too hard, don't be afraid to speak up and be like, hey man, like we need to wind it back. That's something I do personally when I'm like tired and sore and injured, okay? Now, fortunately for me, jiu-jitsu is my job, it's my life, okay? But it's not everyone's job, okay? Some people come here for self-defense, some people come here to just have a good time, some people come here just to have mad scraps, okay? Now, the bottom line is people have work tomorrow. People have work the next day, okay? And you guys need to be respectful of this. And at the end of the day, if you go through and fucking mash all your training partners, nobody's gonna wanna play with you, okay? Now, so not only are you not getting better at jiu-jitsu, you're not making friends by doing it, okay? So one thing I've learned pretty well in my jiu-jitsu career is to learn how to play well, okay? So look at myself and Fee, for example, right? I know I'm enormous, and constantly when I'm rolling with Fee, I have to be on myself about my weight displacement and also about how much strength and athleticism I use, okay? So one time for a laugh, Fee said to me, she's like, oh Daniel, let's just roll normally. And I made my first grip on her wrist and she's like, I tap. That's the scariest fucking thing I've ever felt, okay? Now what you guys might not realize is that like, I never really do that with you guys. I know I'm really big and so maybe it gets lost in the rolls, okay? You're just like, oh, Daniel's really big and really strong. When he grips me, I feel stuck, okay? Maybe, you know, and relatively speaking, that might be the case, but I'm trying to use the same relative strength that whoever's rolling with me is using, and normally less, to be honest, just to play, okay? Because that's how you get better, okay? So, when you guys are rolling, if say I'm rolling with Fee here, right? If we shake hands, typically, I'm gonna elect to take bottom position, just because I don't have to worry about putting my weight on her, okay? Now, if we go, and I make this clear, okay? Now, I've got my first grip, and we're gonna go. Go ahead, Fee. If I just hold this here, and she tries to break my grip or whatever, if I'm a grown-ass man, and no matter how much she pulls and shoves with 2 hands, she can't break my grip. Like, it's the bottom line, okay? Now, I can quite easily from here just like, come up, put her down, push her out of position, and just like manhandle her, okay? But, I'm definitely not gonna get better. It's pretty rude. And you can literally hurt someone. Like, it's not even just like, it's not even fun at that point, right? Because like, what do you get out of that by manhandling a person you're bigger than? And also for Fee or any of the girls especially, or just like, if you're a lot bigger than your opponent, then like, they're just gonna be like, oh my God, I'm gonna get hurt, you know? Now, the cruel part about this is that if you're a woman in jiu-jitsu, say, and you want to improve, the way you improve is by playing the game and getting confident in your ability to use jiu-jitsu. Now, if you constantly are having to shell up and defend and just protect yourself, you're not getting that confidence, all right? So looking at it from a point of view of like, if a girl comes to us, like if a lady comes to us who's been severely assaulted or something like this, and they come in and they're like, you know, shaking mess, or they're just really anxious, it's our duty to like look after these people and help them improve, okay? So my point is that like, if you come in and you roll with these people like that, they're not gonna come back because they're gonna be like, oh, I've got no chance of learning this. They're just all too strong. And they're gonna go into life now thinking there's no chance they could defend themselves, okay? But if you bring them in and you look after them and you allow them to move, okay? So on the contrary, let's look at what this roll might be like, okay? So if I'm here, when I'm here, if I make grips, it's cool if she fights it off. I say, okay, cool, you know? It's not to say that you can't win, but it's just like I'm just trying to play, you know? And she's jamming my legs. Like there's nothing really tight about this. I'm just kind of like loosely playing. And if I get here, she starts to pass or whatever, go ahead, pick. Here, smashing. So it's not to say that I can't win, but I have to use jiu-jitsu to win. Yeah, not just my athleticism, okay? So, like, the other part of this, I guess, is the ego. Like everyone's got one, in a sense, where if you're training with somebody if you look at the situation from my point of view, so what is worse, getting tapped by a girl or tapping a girl, okay? Now, if you tap them with good jiu-jitsu technique, like I can roll with feet and I can tap her pretty comfortably without manhandling her, you know? And you can say, oh, wow, that's good jiu-jitsu. We all go home happy because we had good rolls, okay? If I see you guys rolling with girls, for example, and you just like mash them and submit them and pull them out of position with your physique and athleticism, I look at that and I think that was shit, to be honest. Like, it's not brownie points. I go, well, that's really embarrassing. You know, on the other hand, if I see you guys playing and like letting go of this need to win and just kind of like moving around and playing the game, like if you lose in the game, then so what? You lose the game. It is literally just a game at the end of the day, but it's one that can have real consequences when it comes, like push comes to shove, right? So if you never get the chance to feel confident in your jiu-jitsu because you're always defending, you're not going to improve. I know I sound like I'm spinning my wheels here a little bit, but my point is that it's not just for women as well, but especially for women when you're a man, is being mindful of constantly doing just good jiu-jitsu. You know, if you're like, even if you're bigger and stronger, like if I roll with Fee, like even if I'm using relative strength or whatever, like I'm huge. It is what it is, right? If I come on top to sweep or whatever, if I'm trying to pass or hold him in side control, I'm not putting all my pressure on her, because if I do that, literally by lying on Fee, I can tap her. That's the bottom line.
No, I tapped before.
So, yeah. So, like, that's the reality of the situation of training with women. So, if you get to a spot like side control, like, if I've got feet down, if I get here, and she's framing and lifting my head away, if her frames are actually like mechanically in good position, don't just ride it and just smash. You can, but it's not good, right? But, you know, if we're here and she starts to frame me out, I might just move and just try and wedge my knee in and try and take the timing, work her into the next position. Like, she has to keep escaping using jiu-jitsu, and you have to keep control using jiu-jitsu, right? Imagine when you're rolling with them that you're like their size, you know? Would this work for you, right? Like Big Dale or me, right? If you're gonna hold us in side control like this, is it gonna work if we have our frames in? Or are you gonna be able to stop us from getting a frame in just by being a bull and being tight? Probably not, okay? Because jiu-jitsu is designed to work when the mechanics are all in place and blah, 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 right? Now, an untrained person will likely lose to a person smaller stature who's really well trained, okay? But as soon as you guys start to understand how to play the game, you can get a really misleading sense of confidence based on how you're controlling people, okay? So if you feel like this could even remotely be you, like if you can think about this situation and you're like, oh yeah, maybe I need to wind it down a bit, or maybe I just need to play more, you know? And this goes for when you train with guys as well. Like if I train with you guys, like I don't put my foot to floor because it's dumb. You guys are not gonna have any fun, and neither am I, right? I'm gonna get bored of it really quick, all right? Like if I hold Fee in side control for 4 minutes in a 5-minute round, probably it's shit. It's probably really lame, all right? You're gonna be like, oh, how was training? Yeah, sick. The guy just held me really hard, you know? And then like wrenched me into a Kimura or something, right? Like, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but this is something I'm really passionate about, you know? And like, the more you guys do this, the more you guys are gonna improve, okay? Like if there's one thing on a room that I think we could do better, I think it's a little bit as well, like, if we're looking around a room and say we see a new person, like a new guy rolling with like one of our smaller guys or, you know, one of the ladies, like if they're going hard as shit, like you should be trying to look out for those people, you know, even if it's something as simple as being like, hey bro, like wind it down, you know? It doesn't have to be like you have to assault them, you know? Leave that to me, it's fine, I'm allowed, okay? But my point is, always comes back to, we want to try and improve, and we want people to feel safe, you know? And like, the bottom line is like, literally if I grab Fee's wrist and just pull on it really fucking hard, she doesn't feel safe. Like it's like, oh my God, my shit's gonna break, okay? So, I want people feeling safe, training to improve, and having a good time, okay? And we're so fucking keen to have you guys come back, but what we want to see you guys is get to the moon, okay? With this jiu-jitsu, you know, and not just get there by being diesel as fuck or something, you know? Like, we want to see you guys really improving and coming in technical, all right? The strength is always going to be there as a bigger person. It's one thing I found for myself. From like day dot, I immediately realized just by being big, you can just win by being big, okay? But that's not a flex. That's just being big, okay? And if that worked, the best bodybuilders in the world would also win all the jiu-jitsu competitions. Is it a factor? 100%. Okay, but the bottom line is, if you're already big, there are a lot of big people out there. Not a lot of people who are big are really, really good at jiu-jitsu, and that's the ultimate goal. So, with that in mind, see you guys tomorrow. Horse.